It was a melancholy show about getting your ass kicked and the solace you take from your family and your friends when you're really having a hard time.
Hollywood has been obsessed with teen dramas since what feels like forever. And yet, when I was a teenager, I always felt like these teen dramas didn't accurately depict what it feels like to be a teenager. And I understand teen dramas are exaggerated to be entertaining, and sometimes the audience gets bored with accurate depictions and wants something different, something fictional and detached from reality. But as the years go by, these teen dramas feel more and more glamorized and creepy, like very creepy to the point that I don't even know who is the intended audience for these shows nowadays. So I'm very grateful that a show like Freaks and Geeks exists.
What if all of this is a dream? What if all this is a dream? And it's not even our dream? It's that dog's dream.
Freaks and Geeks was a short-lived dramedy that aired on NBC during 1999 and 2000. It was created by Paul Feig and executive produced by Judd Apatow. Set during 1980 and 1981, the series follows the high school lives of two siblings, Lindsay and Sam Weir, and their respective friend groups. Lindsay represents the freak side, Sam represents the geek side. In the pilot, we find out that Lindsay, an ex-mathlete and default good girl, starts to rebel by hanging around with the freaks. Daniel, Nick, Ken, and Kim. At first, Lindsay doesn't really fit in with the freaks. She's very hesitant to get into trouble, and she even questions the group's morals. But her desire to experiment and how easily she gets persuaded by the group leads her into trouble anyway. It's implied that Lindsay had a small crush on Daniel, who introduces her to the rest of the freaks. Daniel is an easygoing guy who seems to not take anything seriously. He gets bad grades. He's usually always laughing and getting a kick out of things, and he often uses his good looks and charms to get what he wants. And in the first episodes of the series, we see him using these tactics to manipulate Lindsay. In one episode, she throws a keg party for him and even helps him cheat on a test.
And he really will be screwed.
You're manipulating me.
What?
You're manipulating me.
I'm not.
Yes, you are.
But she eventually sees through Daniel's nonsense and realizes nothing between them can happen since Daniel's a player and has a pretty complicated on and off relationship with Kim Kelly.
Just don't lie to me!
I'm not lying.
Don't lie to me!
I'm not lying.
When Lindsay is feeling overwhelmed by the group, Nick is there to comfort her. Nick is very passionate about music, especially about his drumming, and John Bonham.
Hey, I believe in God, man. I've seen him. I felt his power. He plays drums for Led Zeppelin, and his name is John Bonham, baby!
John Bonham died, you know?
Yeah, I know. Last week.
Nick is usually the one to listen to Lindsay and take her advice when he has a problem. Nick ends up developing feelings for Lindsay to eventually start dating, but we'll get into their relationship later.
Hey, I was working.
Nick is also the one who defends Lindsay from Kim Kelly. Now, Kim Kelly is very hostile towards Lindsay because she thinks Lindsay is only hanging out with the freaks to piss off her parents.
You're just some rich kid who's trying to piss off her parents. You think you can hang with these guys? You think that's gonna make you cool?
In the episode Kim Kelly is My Friend, Kim uses Lindsay as an accomplice for one of her lies she told her mom. Despite all that, Lindsay brings Kim to her house to calm her down after a dramatic fight with her mom and finding Daniel with another girl. Strangely enough, the two start to become real friends, and after those events, we end up finding out that Kim is actually a pretty cool and sweet girl, and she's even supportive of Lindsay in later episodes.
Damn, I've never felt so stupid in my whole life. By the way, how are things going at ass school?
Getting all A's.
Ken is a sarcastic guy who loves beer and rock, and of course, pot. He's also in the background giving snarky remarks and funny one-liners. He doesn't get much screen time until he develops a crush on a tuba player named Amy, which is a big deal for Ken's character since it's implied that he's not the type of guy to have crushes or to be fond of anyone.
You're in love with Tuba, girl?
Shut up, man. Just forget it.
Hey, I'm just excited. And we've been waiting since the 3rd grade for you to like somebody. It's great.
Now, before I move on to the geeks, I would also like to mention Millie and Mr. Rosso. Millie is Lindsay's ex-best friend before she joined the Freaks, and she's a fellow mathlete and devout Christian. She's practically the textbook definition of a goody two-shoes, and she often questions Lindsay's choices and reminds her that she's different from the Freaks, and is always there to help and support her despite Lindsay only using her and ignoring her a few times. But Lindsay still appreciates Millie and tries to protect her from turning into a burnout.
No, thank you. I prefer to get high on life.
Mr. Rosso is the guidance counselor of McKinley, and he doesn't want to see Lindsay waste her potential and become a burnout since she's one of the top students at the school. So he's always watching out for Lindsay and oftentimes catches her when she gets in trouble. I think both Millie and Mr. Rosso serve as a sort of moral compass for Lindsay, but Mr. Rosso could come off as pushy sometimes, but he has good intentions.
Come on, Lindsay, don't turn me into the man here. Just trying to help you. And if when you graduate, it turns out I did help you, but you hate me, I'm okay with that. I'm a boy or girl, and I'm a man or woman. I'm 18, I get confused every day. 18, I just don't know what to say.
He's honestly doing better than most real-life school counselors. While Lindsay is dealing with the Freaks, her younger brother Sam, alongside his two close friends Bill and Neil, are struggling to fit in and dealing with constant bullying for being frail and geeky, especially Sam since he's the smallest of the trio. Sam is very innocent and a bit childish. He doesn't like getting out of his comfort zone and he doesn't really know how to stand up for himself. And when he does, it fails.
Crying to your sister, Sam Rear?
No, I'm not. Mr. Konchevsky, I'm smashed by Twinkies.
Nice pecs, Weir. You look like a flat-chested girl.
Well, I'm proud of my body. Oh, come on!
Sam is a very honest kid. He doesn't like lying, and that's one of his strengths, but also one of his weaknesses. He spends half the series crushing on Cindy Sanders, a popular cheerleader that is way out of his league. He even tries different ways to impress her and get her attention. One of my favorite attempts of his was when he tried to change the way he dresses.
It's the new Disco Kingdom! They pull the string and make him talk.
Eventually, Sam gets the girl, but we find out Cindy isn't right for him.
Okay, just because a girl's pretty doesn't mean that she's cool.
Okay, Sam, first of all, of course it does. And secondly, you're just scared. I mean, years from now, you're going to be sitting in your house looking at your unattractive kids with your unattractive wife, saying to yourself, man, why did I ever dump that goddess Cindy Sanders?
Neil has a bit more confidence than Bill and Sam, probably a bit too much to the point where he could come off as cocky and annoying. He's certain he'll be the one to shade off that geek label and become more popular.
I dress okay.
Sam, you look like your mother dresses you.
Hey, well, at least I don't dress like a ventriloquist dummy.
Don't kill the messenger. I know I look good. I dress well and I groom myself properly.
Kudos to Neil. To have that type of confidence at that age is amazing.
When I hit 13, I became a man.
It's only in your temple, Neil, not in the real world.
Moving on to Bill. Bill. His coach is banging his mom. I'm just kidding. Well, not really. Bill is the most awkward of the three, but he's awkward in the way that it's endearing.
What are you allergic to, Bill?
Well, a lot of things are on that list, like bees and air and cats and dogs. Well, not dogs. Well, some dogs. If I eat a peanut, I could die. Oscar Goldman. It's me, Jamie Summers. Steve Austin is trapped in the reacting. Hi, Mom. Okay, you could use the phone.
Even though he hates being a geek, I think he's the one who seems to embrace it. But he also hates the way his peers and teachers stereotype him because he's a geek.
I hate this. Because it's so unfair. Maybe I'm good. They don't know. Maybe I'm unbelievably good. But are they ever going to find out? No, because they never put me in a position where I can catch a stupid ball.
One of my favorite scenes of the show is in the episode The Diary, where Bill gets made fun of in gym class by his coach and the jocks in the class because they think he can't play baseball. So Bill decides to prank call the coach, Mr. Fredericks, and Mr. Fredericks tries to find out who prank call him the next day in class.
Hey, Fredericks. You love patting boys' butts.
You're a perv and a loser and a turd.
Go sniff. Sniff.
Sniff.
A jockstrap, you poophead.
You are a turd. A stinky turd. Ghost of a jockstrap. You poophead.
Jeez, Coach, this is harsh.
You're a perv and a loser. And a turd.
There's an innocence in Freaks and Geeks that I can't find in most teen dramas. Throughout the show, our main characters struggle to let that childhood innocence go. We see that prominently in Sam wanting to hold on to his childhood as much as he can, not giving up on trick-or-treating despite everyone around Sam telling him he's too old. He feels repulsed by the dirty movie Daniel gives him, and I think this is one of the reasons why his relationship with Sydney doesn't work out. His attraction to Sydney was innocent, and he's not ready for those kinds of things. We also see that in Lindsay. Going back to her relationship with Nick, in the episode Girlfriends and Boyfriends, Lindsay is intimidated by the idea of having with Nick. She's not very fond of it happening in the beginning. She even seeks advice from Millie and her parents, and although the advice she received was a bit awkward and lousy, some of it was still somewhat comforting to hear in a show about teens. In an interview with Vanity Fair, Paul Feig said he wanted Freaks and Geeks to feature the fear of sex. I got tired of every teenager being portrayed as horny and completely cool with sex, because that was not my experience, and I completely agree with what he said. Most teenage dramas often forget that there's an innocence of coming of age. Not everyone's going to be comfortable. There's a hesitation to grow up, to disappoint your parents, to do something bad, to leave childhood behind. There's a lot of fear that comes with that feeling of our childhood fading away, or the feeling of missing out because your friends are off doing things you're not ready for. And I think Freaks and Geeks does a wonderful job at capturing that innocence in teenagers. And it's probably because the writers of Freaks and Geeks incorporated their own high school experiences in the show. The writers took 2 weeks sharing personal stories and answering questions like, what was your worst drug experience and who was your first girlfriend? And even if some things in the show feel like cliches, the characters and storylines all feel real. Lindsay starts to rebel and question everything after her grandmother's death.
She grabbed my hand and told me she didn't want to go. She looked so scared, Sam. So I said, well, can you see God or heaven or a light or anything?
What did she say?
No. There's nothing. She was a good person all her life. That's what she got.
Daniel's family is struggling, his father is sick, and he seems to be the only responsible one his mother can rely on. Kim comes from a broken home with a mother who doesn't trust her and a sleazy stepfather. Nick has a strict military father, and most of his brothers have a military background, and he's seen the effects military has on them, and he does not want that for himself.
He's gonna make me join the army. Oh man, I'm gonna have to join the army. I'm gonna be surrounded by a group of psychopaths, like my brothers, and like my dad.
Ken has neglectful parents, and he even questions his sexuality when he finds out that his girlfriend was born intersex.
I might be gay.
I see. That's cool.
And I thought you'd be a good person to talk to about it since you're gay.
I'm not gay.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
Neo discovers his father is cheating, and Bill's mother is dating his coach. Sorry, I don't know why I find that funny. And Bill struggles to accept that Mr. Fredericks is dating his mom. I like that the characters' problems are incorporated naturally as the show progresses, and their problems are not used to teach a lesson to the audience. Although teen shows incorporating lessons for the young audience is important, I like how Freaks and Geeks doesn't really do that, nor does it scare the audience with some kind of dramatic twists or anything like that. These characters are just normal teenagers with relatable backgrounds.
Man, I hate high school.
Very interesting to see something popular and played out like teen dramas never get teenagers quite right, but somehow Freaks and Geeks does.
We can't just drive around all night.
Hey man, we ain't gonna just drive around. It's Halloween.
We are.